I'm a savage, yeah. Classy,
I can't breathe.
savage, yeah. Classy.
I'm a savage, classy, bougie, ratchet.
So thanks to
Coronavirus!
everybody is bored, and we are all isolated, and we're all bored.
Yeah, that's like the whole point.
So a lot of people have made videos about what to do to not be bored. Almost every video that I watched said you can watch TikTok, you can make TikTok, you can do the TikTok dances. Bold of you to assume that I don't already do that. I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet.
Sassy, moody, nasty, yeah. Hacking, stupid, what's happening?
It's normal, right? We are going to read scary stories that will give you nightmares, but will cure you from your boredom. So it's a win-win, because nobody likes sleeping anyway. Alright, buckle up, get some popcorn, or don't, because we are going to make ourselves traumatized and never sleep again.
Scary stories that will give you nightmares.
First, scary story.
So I have kindly performed all of these stories to make them just that much more interesting and scary to you, so you're welcome. Also, I'm reading it off Wattpad, so if something sounds weird or if I say something grammatically incorrect, just remember, it's not me, blame Wattpad, because I'm literally reading it off Wattpad. The link will be below, so if you guys want to go attack the creator.
The girl with the green ribbon around her neck. A long time ago, there lived a girl who had a dark green ribbon tied around her neck. On her first day of school, the boy sitting beside her, whose name was Jim, noticed it from beneath her blonde hair. "Why are you wearing that green ribbon?" he asked the little girl. She looked at the ground. "Someday maybe I'll tell you," she said and turned away. A year later, they became best friends, and while they were eating lunch, Jim asked again, "Why do you wear that green ribbon?" The little girl laughed awkwardly. "Maybe I'll tell you another time." When they entered high school, Jim asked the girl out, and she soon became his girlfriend. He asked again as they were kissing, "Now will you tell me why you wear that green ribbon?" He pleaded with her, "Maybe if we ever get married, I'll tell you, blah, 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 blah." Jim fell in love with the girl, and 10 years later, he proposed and they got married. In bed their first night, the only thing his new wife wouldn't take off was her green ribbon. "Please tell me why you wear that ribbon," Jim begged. "If we ever have kids, I'll tell you," she replied, averting her gaze. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and then Jim asked again, "Now will you
Please tell me why you wear that green ribbon."
His wife sighed and answered, "Look, if you really love me, please just drop it. One day I promise I will tell you why." Okay, so Jim dropped it even though he was dying to know. He just accepted the fact that his wife always wore a green ribbon around her neck. They grew old together, and the woman became very sick. The doctor told Jim she was going to die soon. Jim sat by her bedside for days, distraught, and then he finally said, "Please, tell me why now you
Fat, stinky ass, crusty ass. Bitch.
Why do you always wear that ribbon around your neck?" In a croaky voice, his wife replied, "Okay, I'll tell you now, take it off." Jim reached for the ribbon with fumbling fingers. He pulled the bowl loose, and her head fell off. Okay, that's kind of sad. That's more sad than scary. This one is called The Woman Next Door. A man checked into a hotel one night when he was traveling. As the receptionist handed him the keys to his room, she added, "The room next door to yours doesn't have a number on it and is locked."
Under no circumstances should you look inside or knock on the door.
The man thought this was a little odd, but agreed to it. He went up to his room and passed the door the receptionist had mentioned. He noted that while all the other doors were painted white, that one was painted dark red. He went into his room and went straight to bed as it was late. He awoke in the middle of the night to a loud scratching noise coming from on the other side of the wall next to him, as if someone was scraping their fingernails against it. He ignored the noise. I'm getting paranoid. He ignored the noise for a few minutes, but eventually became annoyed. He got out of bed and went out into the hall and realized the noise was coming from inside the forbidden room with the red door. He considered knocking, but instead decided to peep through the keyhole. The room was dark and bare, but in the middle was a chair with a young woman, they spelled it wrong again, sitting in it with her back faced towards him. The woman had pale white, almost luminous skin and dark black hair falling to her waist. The man wished for a moment that he could see her face, but decided to go back to bed. The scratching noise had stopped. The next morning, he got ready to leave the hotel and continued with his travels. As he left his room, he passed the room with the red door. Remembering the night before, he decided to have one last peek into it, but when he looked through the keyhole, all he could see was blank red, as if someone had draped a crimson curtain over the other side of it. A little disappointed, he left and he handed his keys back to the reception.
Did you have a good stay?
She smiled.
Yes, thank you. Although last night I heard some strange scratching noises coming from inside the other room.
He replied. The receptionist's face paled. You looked in there, didn't you? She said, her voice full of fear.
I did, but what's so terrible about that?
He asked in confusion. Well, 10 years ago, the manager's daughter died in that room. They say she still lives in there. We had to lock it so she couldn't get out. The woman explained, trembling. The man thought it sounded absurd. You must never look into her eyes. Everyone who has died, including her father. She's pale with long dark hair, she went on. The man now began to feel a bit of fear setting in. Well, he thought, at least I didn't look into her eyes. She had her back to me. And worst of all, the receptionist said, they're blank staring red. Okay, this one is called The Smiling Man. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police patrol park quite a few ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight. Wait, why are you walking at 1 and 2 in the morning? Like, that's red flag number 1. Like, are you asking to be murdered? It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. I wonder why. Maybe it's because it's 1 a.m. in the morning and people are sleeping. Actually, no. Nobody sleeps at 1 a.m. Let's be real. Everybody's up on TikTok. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give the majority of the sidewalk to pass by me. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back and then stopped dead in my tracks. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, his smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was sure he was facing me. I had looked away from him no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. Plot twist, he is the Flash. I was shocked that I stood there for some time staring at him, and then he started moving towards me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone. Except he was moving very, very quickly. I'd like to say at this point I ran away, or pulled out my pepper spray, or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept towards me. Yeah, that's kind of creepy. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to my mind. What I meant to ask was, "What the hell do you want?" Instead, I managed to whimper, "What the hell?" But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there. And then after what felt like forever, he turned around very slowly and started dancing, walking away. I just watched him go until he was far enough to almost be out of sight. Oh my god. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore. He was coming back my way. And this time, he was running. This one wasn't even scary. If you don't want to be bored, you can always read scary stories or watch scary stories, or you can make your own. But yeah, this is one way to cure your boredom, is just to scare yourself half to death. If you've stayed for this long and listened to me ramble, well, good job. Do you want a cookie? Okay, bye.